This mystery will focus on the Éliphas Lévi Zahed, an art piece that was created in 1856 by a French artist who goes by the name of Éliphas Lévi Zahed. French pronunciation, originally born by the name of Alphonse Louis Constant, February 8, 1810 to May 31, 1875 in Paris, France. Forget everything you think you know about the Éliphas Lévi Zahed. In solving this mystery, we will focus only on aspects created in 1856 and the years beyond. In solving this mystery, I will explain the true purpose of the serpent symbol depicted in the center, the five-pointed pentagram and its geometrical pattern and meaning, the half-moon shapes, angles and setup, hand gestures, and the reason for the size of the horns pointed upward in this manner. You will finally see why the artist used such elaborate details in certain areas and why he left some areas void or plain. Notice what appears to be careless scribblings on the four corners and the odd shapes you might have thought were done hasty or in an illegible manner. Like some of the letters shown are written insufficient, or the capital E being square on the forearm, yet the other three are displayed rounded on the bottom of the name. And why the L is darkened and shaded compared to the other letters done in such an oddly shape. You might be asking how I can tell that there is a mystery to be solved in this design. Well, first of all, with the right hand pointed upward, we see the word solve written on his forearm. But mainly we're going to focus on his center point here, at 0. And then you'll take your first step until you see a keyhole. For those of you who never noticed this before, keep in mind that all the components we use to piece this puzzle together must be relevant with the year 1856 and beyond, and bear every aspect of its features geometrically as well as its characteristics. Back then, a keyhole would look like this. Secondly, you would look for a key. Oh, here we are. A key. Now here are some more examples of what a key back then used to appear to be. Now as we look at the characteristics of this feature, we unravel our first clue, which is Greek mythology. Its simulation is that of the caduceus symbol, the wand of the Greek god Hermes, the protector of human heralds, travelers, thieves, merchants, and orators. Now as we look at the similarities between both ball, wings, pole, snakes or serpents, as we prefer to call it, of what is less obvious, hidden, are the horns pointed upwards, like the top of the wings of the symbol caduceus. And within the right horn, we see the inner loops, like that of the wings feathers of the symbol of caduceus. Legs crossed, like the tail end of the serpents. Heels of hooves, like the bottom hooks of the serpent's tails. And when this symbol is lined up over top geometrically, we see outlines of this pattern line up with portions of the design in different areas. Top ball within perimeter, tip of horns reaching feather ends, inner nostrils aligned to the crossing of the serpent's body, pole as well as the mid-crossing of the serpents. Now for a final transformation. Notice the nostril align up with the body of the serpent. Alright, moving on behind the serpent symbol to this half-dome frame shape. I will now explain why this is perfectly in place with who it relates to, and it has something to do with this Greek mythological figure, Phanes, the god of creation and life. Name means bring to light. He was hatched by a cosmic egg. He symbolizes serpent and egg, said to have come to the world in an egg at the beginning of time. He represents the mystic primeval deity of procreation and the generation of new life. This relates to zodiac signs, also known as astrology symbols. Now as we compare the similarities between, we have Aries on the top, with the horns pointed upwards like Taurus. We also have a bull-headed figure on the outside right rib area of Phanes. Head of fire, similar to that of the loop fire of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed. Both have wings and rod. As for one of the serpents would represent that wrapped around Phanes. Now here is an example between the two differences between both serpents. On the right, a darker violent looking serpent, mouth open, exposing front. Left side serpent, stern expression, mouth closed, back and side exposed. This symbolizes controversy between the two. Phanes centers between two half-oval egg shapes, whereas Ours center is aligned between two half-moon shapes. Keep in mind that geometrics play a major part in the completion of this puzzle. Both have hooves, yet the difference between the two should lead you to search for your next clue. Both on top of half-dome shape, yet Fanis on fiery flat side while the others on round. Now topping off the differences, we look at Fanis with a thunderbolt in his right hand and a scepter in his left. His feet are hoofed shaped like the goat legs of the Greek god Pan. Pan. Here we go. Pan. The god of the wild, rules over nature and pasture lands. He is depicted in literature and art. Impervious to injury, he possesses enormous strength and can teleport himself from place to place and back. In war, he lets out an immense cry that frightens the enemy. Our vocabulary word panic derived from the name of this Greek god Pan. Panic. The sudden uncontrollable fear that leads people into irrational behavior. Now as we look at the similarities between both have similar horns, ears, and beard. And both have the bottom half of body is like a goat. The top half is like a man, however the difference is the wings and the face. Pan has the face of a man. Now with an extensive exploration keeping relevant within the time frame before the Éliphas Lévi Zahed was created, by using the pentagram as a symbol of witchcraft in my search mode, I stumbled upon this piece of art. Witch's Sabbath, painted in 1798 by Francisco José de Goya y Luciante, Spanish artist. Born 30th of March 1746, died the 16th of April 1828. Now as we compare similarities between both, first with the half-moon shape, large horns, both have a similar face. Now look at the hand gesture, shaped like the hoof. Garment cover-up. Bottom horn is round-shaped, aligned like the dark side of the half-moon. Dark and light. Now understanding the description of this painting, we look to the horns that symbolize authority. While pointing upwards towards the sky, it represents media. Now the two-sided dark and light colors state extreme difference within the controversy of what's being witnessed. Now wrapped around these horns, we see a Roman wreath, and this symbolizes political authority. On one side, you see people gathering in panic and anxiety, some offering their baby and sick child. Panic, running to this central Pan-type figure, as a description in the vocabulary. Arms stretched out, making contact as she's handing over her baby. The other, her sick child. Right arm held at a 90-degree angle displays a strong arm hold, like the right arm bent at a 90-degree angle of our Éliphas Lévi Zahed figure, keeping them at bay. While in the background we see children behind left dead hanging on a spike. Child dead in the sand. Her cover garment in front concealing his private area. Represents a private cover-up. Straight baby's feet placed one on top of each other, illustrating the form of an hourglass bottle. Triangular shaped people in the background represent the falling sand. The whole scenario of this symbolizes time cut short. Now as we look deep into what is hidden. If you look at the backside of this lady, you'll see what appears to be a hidden eagle. And here on the right, the lady with the baby appears to be dragging this skull on her backside. Now if we seek closely within the back center of the wreath, we find a hidden pentagram. Another fine example of confirmation from clues that would bind the two. Okay, and what you're not going to figure out right away are what these flying species are in the sky. Whether or not they are bats or owls, but hang on tight, we have more from this topic later. Now remember these hidden images. They will be vital clues as we move on. Alright, the alignment of these half-moon shapes revolving around the center point signifies an obvious yet hidden implication that he wants you to cut out and place down. And by using this technique, you will see that parts of the outlines of objects from each clue that we gather will utter the full completion of this design by each clue yet to come. Here, I will show you how it's done. With this transformation, we notice the outlining of the right eye from the Éliphas Lévi Zahed, while the eye from the Witch's Sabbath painting covers the nostril. Here is another close-up example of the eye within the leaves of the wreath, as well as the other eye within the nostril. Take a look at the transformation as we focus on the center. Notice the sick boy while grasping upon the leg of his garment, the outline reflecting the dark part of the sand. The 2 feet from the baby fall within the perimeters of the right hoof. Here is another close-up example. Alright, if we look at this part, the 2 end fingers pointed downward, like mimicking the dangling legs of the hanging children. By the shape of the top head in the noose, we see it parallel to the top S in solve. Watch the transformation. As I said previously, the difference between the two should be the search to your next clue. And as much as we have close similarities between these two, there's still a difference between the upper body, the hands, and the wings. So after persistently searching, keeping in accordance within the right time period, I typed in Cupid and found this as a result. A painting from another French artist by the name of Pierre Mignol, whose name I am pronouncing in a French accent. Pierre Mignol, born 1610 to 1695, this is a painting entitled Time Clipping Cupid's Wings, which he created in 1694. So let's take a look at the similarities between both. Now the first thing I noticed was a resemblance with the tip of the wings that these both share in common. How they looked almost identical yet inverted opposite from each other. And within this center dome we find feather clippings, also covered by the serpent's shape formed like an hourglass bottle, as we see here at the bottom right corner. We recently learned that this symbolizes time cut short. Now we're noticing an open garment, like the cover garment being exposed. Look at the heel hind posed like the hoof, an illustration of panic, as we recently just learned that the word panic derived from pan. And down here on the bottom we have a scythe, similar to the shape of the half moon. The scythe shape and whole scenario here also coincides with the Éliphas Lévi Zahed's hooves over top of the half dome shape, as we see here on the right. Now watch and see as we overlap these two together. Now take a look at the right hand of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed. Ever notice the lines over the top surface of the 2 end fingers? You can see similar lines in the wing. Watch as we overlap these two. Now as we move to the area of the left nostril and the mouth of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed, take a look at the eye and the nasolabial line crease from the corner of the nose of the father figure as we overlap. And in the center area, as we see that transformed by the dissolve of the overlap, take a look at the index finger of the father figure as it aligns up with the center inner pole. The linings of the feathers in the dark serpent's face, the beginning of the baby's wing root as it aligns up with the boundaries of the center dome shape, the baby's bottom and the curve of the lighter serpent, the hem of this feather to the father figure's forearm, the border line of this crease seated upon by the father figure's leg, also outer linings of the lower leg and calf, foot within margins of hoof, tip of the scythe as well as its bottom point touching the outer surface of the half globe. The round curve of the scythe even with the tips of the two hooves. The scythe representing to reap parallel again with the half moon. Now if you haven't noticed this before, the two nipples are on top of each other. Watch as it's dissolving in transformation. Take a look at the full overlap transformation once again. Another piece from Francisco José de Goya y Luciante entitled They Carried Her Off, created between 1797 and 1798. Alright, let's check out the similar aspects between these two. We have the white shoe pointed up, like the white pointed half moon shape, and also cover garments. Now check as we merge these two over top. Now take a look at the top lining of the surface of the tip of her shoe, as it lines up with the odd lines on his wrist. And here's how this transformation looks enlarged. The ripples of the garment that appear to be covering perfectly the loops of the serpents. Her bottom lip within the incomplete A of coagula, and the alignment of Éliphas Lévi Zahed's pinky to her forehead. And here's how this transformation looks enlarged. You'll now see the top part of the S arch round to a normal size of a letter S. And here's how this transformation looks enlarged, and in comparison to the top part of the S that it had before. Many sequential lines. So now you have an idea of the reason for these odd parallel and arch-looking lines. They are outer frames that support the clues we gather, like pieces to a puzzle, and each clue offers a part of the outlining with its characteristics that fully composes design to a whole. This scenario also backs up the theory of laying over top and lining up shapes with the sequential lines. Now stay with me as we move on to show you more clues that complete the missing parts. Another art piece by Francisco de Goya entitled Cartloads to the Cemetery, created between 1812 and 1815. Now placing each side by side as we compare, take a look at the round border of this half-dome tunnel, much like part of the one we have surrounding our half-dome center. In the middle here we have a rectangular form. There's no really telling whether our cubic shape is rectangle or square. It is partially hidden by our cover garment. Pointed shoe on the foot facing downwards in the dark shadow, like the pointed hoof on the right side. Now as we integrate these over top of each other. As I align the top part of this design with the horizontal line of the pentagram, the center line lines up evenly from the bottom pole up to the point. Similar hand shaped like the right hand, yet opposite from top to bottom. As for down here, we have the pointed shoe in the same angle pointed down from top to bottom. And for the big match find, we have the outline formation of her hand covering the shape of the heel of the hoof. Also, the shade linings of the folds in the cover garment line up with her mouth and eyebrows, as well as the pointed shoe. Now watch this transformation carefully. Another art piece from Francisco de Goya, entitled Out Hunting for Teeth, created between 1797 and 1798. Now as I place these side by side, we will begin to explore the first similarity, starting with the top. Loop like noose. The top of the flame is shaped like that of the noose. Side by side, we will begin to explore the first similarity, starting with the top. Loop like noose. The top of the flame is shaped like that of the noose. Second, back arched like horn. 3. Hand similarities, like the artist used the same hand. 4. Wings and line like garments. Similar alignment with the garments and the wings. 5. Shoes and hooves, pointed and aligned side by side. Now for the hidden decoys. Here you see a hidden skull within the garment of the lady figure. And here a hidden eagle in the bottom part of his trench coat. A parallel grim reflection of her face. Here it is, flipped over right side up. And what else is hidden? Oh, the inner lining of the rope. And as we use the same method to cut out and place down, a quick overlap dissolving transformation. Notice the ripples of his top trench coat when aligned over the pentagram. The right eye and eyebrow of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed, and the right hand and index finger of the lady figure. Tip of the index finger top to her pulled garment, as well as the pinky and ring finger to her face and her nose. Middle trench coat overlap to shoulder. Wrist bracelet to nipple. Outer shade linings of her shoes. Cupid square in sync with brick wall. Witness the full transformation overlap once again. Artwork from Francisco de Goya entitled There Was No Remedy, created between 1797 and 1798. This cap symbolized a trend in the 13th century. A theologian by the name of John Duns Scotus adopted this cap as a reversal funnel for knowledge. This hat was a symbol of intelligence until humanists began to mock Duns' intellectual status in the 1500s. From then on, it was worn as a mark of disgrace. Tricorn hats, pronounced tricon in French, worn by lords of parliament, manners, rituals, and politics. Stambok whip was used to drive cattle and sometimes by police or other figures of authority to retain order. To be portrayed on a donkey or a jackass could indicate that you are dunce-like or a fool. Hands binded like her captive. Parallel to the hands of parliament, who are bounded by oath, like being binded. Watch as we integrate overtop. Outer linings of the dunce cap top in the flame loop. Inner face lining in the pentagram. Parliament figure's eye outlined in the wing. Outer lining of dreadlocks in the thumb and bottom fingers. Backhand in line with bottom of thumb. When combining the body over top of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed's face, he reveals a sneer grin or smug look, much like the face of the captor. Here we have an example of it zoomed in. Over this transformation, you'll see the outer linings of the letter E. The outer layer from the garment of her hip align with the outside frame of the arm of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed. As well as his two fingers press up firmly against the eye and forehead of the child. Like illustrating a statement portraying penetrating through the eyes and mind. Take a look now as these merge together. This will show another example of picture animation from this time period, a piece by Francisco de Goya Luciante entitled Until Death, created in 1799. Supported by giggling, smirkling hypocrites, one would be seen whispering behind her back. Notice the hidden clown face within the sleeve and waist of this garment. Observe the facial expression of the central figure lady in comparison with the reflection in the mirror. Notice her lips appear to be puckered up while the mirror's mouth closed. Now watch as we overlap this on top. Hand and scarf like privately talking into the ear. Face fitting within the perimeters of the top left wing. Top ribbon bouquet outlining the eye of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed. Wrinkled face and sunken cheeks outline the area of the mouth of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed. The circumference of the two shoulders meet, as well as both arms are bent parallel. The outline of her elbow lines up with the outer edge of his right breast. Ripples from her dress align up with cover garment. Cubic chair identical with cubic box. Inner shoe aligned with the bottom point of the half moon shape, similar to the illustration of the divided hoof. The other shoe would be another example. Now look closely as we merge these two photos together. Watch how the lips pucker up. Now take for instance this other design, also created by Francisco José de Goya y Luciante, entitled Duchess of Alba, Arranging Her Hair, created between 1796 and 1797. Now placing these side by side, we see they both have an overhead loop. Now keep in mind of it being identical outlines of this parallel loop shape. Both arms bent, remember 90-degree stronghold. Same right hand, yet one's identically turned opposite. They both have a center line. Belly with a zigzag pattern. Both have garment. Hair layered like wings. Pointed shoe like hoof. Alright, elbows pointed outward in same posture as ears. Alright, take a look at what is hidden. If you look at her top dress, you see the outlinings of a grim face. Now, keeping in mind the center outlines of the identical parallel shape we have beside it, this method is of the same origin that derived from the beginning, with our round center with the incomplete circles of different sizes within, using cutout and place down techniques as we align. Now take for instance this complete stamp figure. By using this same formula of cutting out and placing down, we're left with parts of the outlines, the basic foundation that fundamentally created this design. Now if you take the center and align with the tip of the hand at the corner of this point, Place over top and watch the designs integrate with one another. Now by her hand here you see the outline of her fingertip in the lower part of the loop flame, as well as the outer bottom tip of the left horn within the inner border of the stamp-shaped figure. Outlinings of her face in the inner tower. Hair trends, lining up with the surface of the index finger and thumb of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed. As for the hidden grim face on her top dress, exhibits perfect indentations covering up over the eyes, snout, and mouth of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed. Here displays a final overall transition. Another art design by Francisco de Goya entitled The Sleep of Reason Produces Monsters, created between 1797 and 1798. Now remember previously in the Witch's Sabbath painting when I discussed whether or not the flying species were bats or owls. The Sleep of Reason Produces Monsters illustrates an example of someone daydreaming while being paranoid. As for the media in the Witch's Sabbath, it shows uncertainty. Alright, here are the similarities. Wings on back, cover garment, cubic seat, and notice the parallel horizontal lines in both. Crossed legs and pointed shoes side by side like divided hoof. Now as we overlap, take a look at the left nostril of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed and the ear of the bat as we integrate these two. Hand posture paralleled opposite, yet has a similar form to the odd fold of the cover garment. Outer finger pinky aligned up with the edge of the owl's wing. Calf overlapping the full perimeter of the upper hoof. The bottom edge of the table aligns evenly horizontally with the bottom line of the half globe shape. Take a look now as these merge together. Alright, another art piece by Francisco José de Goya Illuciante entitled Who Can Think of It? Created between 1814 and 1823. Down here on the bottom we have written in Spanish, ¿Quién lo puede pensar? Which English translation means, who can think? Now let's compare the similarities between both. First, on top overhead we have a loop figure. Notice the top part on both are incomplete. Secondly, we have chain links, much like the shape of the links of our serpents. Third, wrapped in garment, with a dark side and a light side. And both have a shadow, similar to the half moon shapes, white and black. Foot pointed downward like the hoof. Now here's the hidden object. In the center part, take a look at this brown shape with dark outlines. If you think it looks like this, you'll be wrong. Now take a look at the outline of the hoof. Here's a blow-up version. Now watch as we align the top chain link over the dark serpent and the brown center shape over the hoof. Another art piece linked to Francisco José de Goya y Luciente entitled "The Captivity is as Barbarous as the Crime," created in 1810. Now let's start with comparing the bottom garment. Dark and light side. Much like the bottom part of our cover garment, dark and light side. Now distinguish the ankle cuff half-moon shaped ends, aligned like our half-moon shapes, also dark and light, like the knees. The ankle shackles look like our keyhole center, only that they are angled sideways. Now watch as we integrate this over the top of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed. Now, first major clue confirmation. Now if we focus on this part of the chain link within the right forearm of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed, take a look at the tiny unusual shape at the end of this chain link. Now watch as we merge it over top of the odd looking S in solve. See how the tiny end shapes perfectly align together? Now watch as the underlinings of his nose line up with the bottom part of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed's beard. Survey the scribbled lines on his upper sleeve, cover the top back border of the lighter colored serpent's head, as well as the alignment with the center pole. Watch the end of this ankle cuff align up with the two parallel bottom layers below the cover garment. Here's a couple transitions. Another piece of art by Goya y Luciente entitled Chained Prisoner, created between 1806 and 1812. Take a look at the end of the prisoner's leg shackle. Now take a look at the outline lettering of the E in Éliphas. See how the E is written? And when placed over top? Fingers over the top corner of the face and nose of the prisoner. Hip being aligned with the boundaries of the center dome shape. Here's a look at the final overlap transformation. Another art design from Francisco José de Goya y Luciente entitled Mournful Foreboding of What Is to Come, created in 1810. Placed side by side, notice the identical comparison of the two left hands' size and arm position. The right posture of the shoulder and bicep as we overlap these two pictures together. Watch the tip of the fingers in the right bicep. Watch the transformation. There are also structural parts of his face embedded on the right side face of that of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed. The perimeters of both shoulders meet. The right outer hip aligns up with the edge of the center half-dome shape. Here's another open transformation overlap. When placed directly in the center, the contours of his face fit within the structure of the face of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed, as well as the fingertips touch the edge of the outer frame. What appears to be a balanced piece of art by Francisco de Goya entitled May the Rope Break, created between 1815 and 1820. First hand, length and arm positions. Dark cape on his back, much like the wings of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed and cover garment. Cubic block with inner parallel lines. Rope loop like that of the curve of the serpent. Now as we shrink this and perfectly line up the side edges together, we merge these over top of each other. The left eye of the balanced man within the nostril of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed and also the outlinings of parts of his face. Now take a look at the outline of the two thumbs and hands as they coordinate with each other. The back outer lining of the balancing leg and foot lined up with the bottom and tip of the right wing. Now take a look at the line between the ring finger and the pinky, as well as the lines on the palm of the hand of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed while he appears to be holding up part of the rope. Loop of the rope lined up with bottom fold of the cover garment. Now take a close look at these transformations once again. Another one from Francisco de Goya, keeping stable with his art, with a piece entitled Rise and Fall, created between 1797 and 1798. Now let's compare these similarities between both. First, flaming top, arms spread, detailed design on his shirt like an overlapped crossover like that of the serpents. The obvious hooves. These two hooves would appear to be of an identical size and mold, yet presented vertically opposite. Same goes for the thumb and two fingers displayed by these hands. Global shape. Now as we merge these two over top of each other. Top left corner right hand firmly grabbing the tip of the right horn. The outline of his fingers embedded in the mid-upper part of the left wing. Take a look as the tiny middle and index finger fit evenly within the index finger of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed. There are other outlines, but watch these three transformations once again. Alright, another art design from Francisco José de Goya y Luciente entitled Phantom Dancing with Castanets, created between 1824 and 1828. Now let's take a look at the similarities between both. First, top. Overhead loop. Secondly, we have right hand up, left hand down. It's covered up like our garment. Now watch as I merge this over top. On top in the inner overhead loop, we have some lining line up with the outside of the pentagram bar. His right upper castanets line up with the lower part of the hand under Éliphas Lévi Zahed's thumb. Both of their mouths line up, as well as shades of the eye over the top of the nostrils of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed. His left castanet would cover a bit of the outline of the letter C in Coagula. The bottom perimeters of his foot line up with the upper part of the hoof. Here's a couple transitions. Alright, swaying in is another piece of art from Francisco de Goya entitled Old Man on a Swing, created between 1824 and 1828. The only similarities we would see would be the rope and the serpent. Tip of the rope hanging from top of the right horn. Outer left hand within the perimeter of the top of the right wing. Right hands evenly parallel and in size, yet showing different position. both feet within the inner boundaries of the left wing. Now as we merge these two designs together through transformation, take a look at the identical outlines in certain areas. Now there are a lot of people who saw this art piece created by Francisco José de Goya y Luciante entitled Sharing the Old Woman. However, on the bottom part of this we have written in a Spanish accent, Partir la Vieja, translated in English meaning split the old, created in 1810. Now let's first stand and take a look at our centered pointed saw shape and compare it with our pointed pentagram. Remember that these are both geometric patterns. Ripples. Cover garment. Arched hip. Body contour similar to the round top of our center dome shape. Both over a cubic box. Now check out the walking cane, similar to the identities to our center pole. Notice the pointed toes like our hooves. Now as we merge these two portraits over top, this will display a fine example of the alignment being within the border and margins of each other. Tip of the end of the horns touching the outer border as well as the right and left tip of our center tower. Now the left outer borderline is touching the bottom tip of our top half moon shape, parallel with the base of our cane connected with the lower point of our ground half moon shape. The inner and outer bottom border aligns within the parallel lines of the lower part of our half globe shape. Now watch the nose and mouth align with the right underarm and upper rib of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed through this transformation. The pole range within the ripple fold at the center of the woman's cover garment. Foot in the hoof area. Watch this transformation once again. Another art piece from Francisco de Goya entitled They Are Hot, created between 1797 and 1798. Alright, let's look at the similarities. On one hand, we have a light side and a dark side. The alignment of his thumb pointed sideways like the positioning of the darker snake over a plate. The plate being like the oval shape. Cubic table like the square cubic shape. The correlation between the cover garments. There's a mysterious dark background figure that seems to be serving some unidentified substance. Watch the transformation. The nose and left eye of his face is embedded in the horn. Eyes and face align up with that of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed. There are some outer contours of his face embedded in the wing. The shape of the hand metacarpal by his ear. Plate aligns directly over center of the round half dome shape. The shading of the two garments fold align here. Bottom lower half moon shape as footstep.
Animated overlap.
Watch as we perform this transformational overlap. Watch the figuration of the face as we perform this transformational overlap. Another one from Francisco de Goya entitled The Chinchillas, created in 1799. Alright, now let's take a look at the similarities between both. Let's start on top with the ears. While not in the same position, they look to be alike. Arm bent, 90-degree angle, strong. Round basket, round center. Handles are curved shaped, like the serpentine loops. Keyholes, like our initial keyhole. Now here's what is hidden. Take a look at the cover garment outline symbols. See how the lines cross over, like that of the serpents. The other one, which appears to have the contours of a badge of authority, you can also tell by his French naval cutlass. Back then, these were worn and used by military officers. Now, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but this appears to be possibly another set of legs. Like some kind of cover-up. Now, as we merge these together, we see the spoon from the corner of the mouth of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed. Open mouth appears to be fed by the shade of the shoulder, while the crest from the right wing fits perfectly in the mouth of the other. Basket perfectly within the perimeters of the center. Alright, get ready. Here's something that you never knew. The ideas and features of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed actually derived from a donkey. And it's all in these pages from a design by Francisco José de Goya y Luciante entitled As Far Back as His Grandfather, created between 1797 and 1798. Edge of the right ear is arched geometrically just like the right horn. Top ear also arched like the right side tip of the tower. Both have large nostrils, like a donkey. Here's a difference when compared with the nostrils of a goat. And there will be more confirmation on this subject. Alright, the image of the donkey embedded on the badge of authority. Head also being arched, similar to our snake. Or a serpent as we call it. Both of their hooves are pointed on a black and white colored shade on the dome shape, or half globe as we call it. Watch the outline of both facial features fit tightly together as we merge both of these to an overlap transformation. Now what's mostly visible is the bottom outlines of the buck teeth and the mid-upper ear dark folded ripple to the point sticking out on the lower left horn. Watch the outlines and indentations as his garment covers the two serpents. Now here's the full transformation once again. Another one by Francisco José de Goya y Luciante entitled Of What Will He Die? Created in the year 1799. Now let's look at the matching similarities between both. Background shadow shapes like reflecting the shadow of the wings. Ears angled round like the bottom curve of the right horn. Ears are also similar like the nostrils. Alright, I'll show you an example. Here's the nostrils of a goat. Notice the nostril holes are just tiny slits. Now here's another example of a billy goat. Notice the nostrils. And they don't even share similar ears. Although he carries the authority of the horns of the goat, he has the face of a mule. And notice again the matching nostrils. Notice he's wearing a pointy shoe, like the hoof. Now let's take a look at what is hidden. Hidden skull on the bed of the patient. Now as we merge these two designs in transition, pay close attention to the animation of the eye of the donkey. Notice how in this transitional state it appears that his eye is opening and closing. We also have the outline features of the patient's face embedded in the left wing. The outlines of the hand and hoof within the inner linings of the lighter serpent, as well as the indentations of the bed sheets that cover perfectly over both serpents. Now take a close look at these transformations once again. Alright, here's another painting from Francisco de Goya entitled Plucked Turkey, created in 1812. Well, at first there didn't seem to be much similarities between these two to me, but what caught my eye initially was what appeared to be a nipple on the neck of this plucked turkey. And here's a blow-up for you to see. So I used some geometry, shrunk it down, spinned it around, opposite from what it's supposed to be. Now look what I found. The outline of the toes embedded in the upper part of the top right wing. The outer frame of the leg covering the whole right side of his face. Tail to the shape of his eyebrows and what even appears to be a replicate of the shade of his eye. The wing in place of his arm. And the matching nipple. Lining of the beak and outlines of the sardines embedded in the wing. Now here are a couple transitions. Now here's an enchanted painting by Francisco José de Goya y Luciante entitled The Bewitched Man, created in 1798. Alright, as we begin by placing these side by side, let us first take a look here in the background of what appears to be donkeys or jackasses, and keep in mind that this could indicate foolishness. As for the teapot, notice the handle and its round curve shape, structured similar to the top part of our lighter colored center snake, or serpent as we call it. Now see the identical arched contours. Now take a closer look at the top part of the serpent. It's also shaped like the horn on the ram head. Note the foot. Did you detect the divided tip of her shoe, much like the hoof? Here at the bottom right corner, we see the incomplete letter LA inscribed on the top part of the book cover, comparable to the last two letters of coagula written on the left forearm of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed. Now as we integrate these two over top of each other. Now first off, notice the forearm to elbow, similar to the size and shape of the tipping T-top, coincidentally also in the same location, as well as the middle tip point of our center tower, covering the top ear of the donkey. Also the top part of the forehead, lining up to the inner lining of the right shoulder of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed.
More hidden outlines. Shade of the eye.
Another painting by Francisco José de Goya y Luciante entitled Witch's Flight or in Air, created in 1798. Similarities starting with the top, pointed like the tips of our center tower. Notice now the postures are geometric, showing cover garments and a cover-up. Notice the donkey on the lower right, ears pointed like our ground half-moon shape, pointed boots like hooves. Now back over top with the dunce caps. Now what is unclear with the specific illustrations of the outer designs is whether or not they are snakes or sperm cells. Now here's a blow up of this. Now what you possibly never knew is this center figure over here is a man. And this is most likely an intense imaginative vision brought out by this male figure you see here facing downward in the sand in an obscure manner. It can also be this center dark figure topped over with cover garment. Now watch this transition as we merge these two on top of one another. Now take a look at the overall cover of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed's face. Notice his eye under the cheekbone of the yellowish lady figure. You'll notice the outer outlines of the greenish lady's ear with the side face of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed. Outer shades of the corner of the mouth and nostril of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed. Here's a couple transitions. The yellowish woman's foot in line with the light-colored serpent. The dark figure's white overhead sheet on a par over top of the cover garment of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed, as well as the tip of his pointed shoe lined up perfectly parallel along the side of his hoof. Now here's a gory cannibalistic painting by Francisco de Goya y Luciante entitled Saturn Devouring One of His Children, created between 1819 and 1823. Now watch the identical outlines as we merge this painting over top. First off, the shoulder and the inner lining of the hair in the top forehead. The underarm lines aligning with the nasolabial lines in the side of his cheek. Underline of the right chest of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed lining up with the side of his chin, as well as the nipple and the spot on his tongue. Outer right hand and the inner lining of the dark serpent. As well as the mouth and some inner laps of the central dome. Elbow around the perimeter of the odd fold of the cover garment. Back leg and buttocks lining up with the inner lining of the serpents. Now take a close look at these transformations once again. More gore from Peter Paul Rubens to the painting entitled Saturn Devouring His Son, created in 1636. A lining on the top and the 3 stars in the fire loop ring. Tiny fingers align with the lighter serpent's head. Inner linings of the toes in the L of Levi. Notice the end of the scythe, presented in the same position as the bottom point of the half-moon shape, while also appearing the same as the tip of the horn. Round top of the left wing lined with the inner lining of his hair, as well as the outer lining of his nose embedded in the wing. Now watch as we merge these in transformation. An art painting from Francisco José de Goya y Luciante that looks like it was painted in blood, entitled War Scene, created between 1810 and 1812. Notice a similar upper body posture, bent arm up while the other laid down. The extremity of the light and dark colors. Do you remember the 90-degree angle strong arm position? visible open palm means caused by a negative result. Notice a pointy shoe facing downward, another example of our hooves. As we integrate these two designs over top, we notice the two fingers of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed holding up the rifle. As for the length of the fingers of the lower hand, covering within the circumference of the heel and the hoof. Watch as we transition these two parts again. Here's a gruesome piece by Francisco de Goya entitled "This is Worse," created between 1812 and 1815. I will begin right away by integrating these two artworks together. This is another example of how two sketches are merged together to create one, but first I will show you how they were calibrated. Eye bulge and nose. Notice the head on top. While his eye initially appeared to be closed, when merged together it now looks to be bulging out upward. Forearm and branch. Sword and the edge of the wing. You also see an outline of the nose embedded in the cheekbone of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed. Outer surface of the branch in his forearm, edge of the sword and outer edge of the left wing. Another gruesome one by Francisco de Goya, entitled "What More Can One Do?" created between 1812 and 1815. Watch how these merge together as I show you what parts are perfectly outlined. Take a look at the apple design on the Ushanka hat. For this military looks Russian, for these are the hats that they wore in the wintertime. See the perfect outline of the middle finger from the Éliphas Lévi Zahed's right hand align up with the corner edge of the apple design. The outer edge of the bush merging around the top right corner surface of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed's head. The sword and the border surrounding our dome-shaped center seems to be in sync with one another. With the same width and ends meet, it would appear that the border is being stretched out like the sword. More gruesome art from Francisco de Goya with a piece entitled "Here Neither," created between 1812 and 1815. Alright, placed side by side, the first thing we're going to look at is on top, the noose. Keeping in mind the form of our fire loop shape. Pant garment pulled halfway down. Shoes on feet placed tight together resembling a divided hoof. Cubic shape. And on the surface of this block it appears to have a hazy incomplete inscription of the letters LA inscribed upon it, like the incomplete last two letters of coagula. Shrinking this design with the alignment of the side edges, we see the lining of the noose rope within the inner tower. The trench coat garment would appear to accurately cover half the face of Éliphas Lévi Zahed, showing the outer indentations. Fingertips and hand within the top part of the branch. Foot accurately within the top layer fold of the cover garment. Edge of the outer lines match up as the cubic block pressed firmly on the side of the cover garment. What I said was possibly a hazy, incomplete letter A lines up in the grooves of the lower part of the left wing. Take a look now as these merge together. Another art piece by Francisco de Goya entitled The Same, created between 1810 and 1815. Notice the 90-degree angle strong arm hold. Open hand result caused by a negative impact. Overlap cross symbol over coat, like the crisscrossing of the bodies of our serpents. And here's another demolished example. Foot pointed downwards, like our hooves, similar to this one in particular. Pointed spiked object trampled on the ground like a fallen half-moon shape. Straight arm impacting obstruction. Now can you see the hidden images? Dying faces. This one up front appears to be an oversized decapitated head. Now as I merge this portrait over top, axe blade within the perimeter of a flap in the left wing. Coat and hat overlapping the outer border of our center half dome shape, also making apparent that the cross symbol is being torn down. Watch this transformation once again. Alright, another art piece by Francisco José de Goya y Luciante. And up here on the top right corner we have written in Spanish, Aún aprendo. An English translation to that would be, I am still learning, created between 1824 and 1828. Now watch as we merge this over the top of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed. Notice the same outlines of the left eye and the high cheekbone. Now take a look at the outlines of the right eye and cheekbone. Here's a couple transitions. See his left walking stick align up with the boundaries of the primary feather of the outer wing. Here's a couple transitions.
Witches' Sabbath, The Great He-Goat by Francisco Goya, created between 1821 and 1823. We'll come back to this painting, but first let us go over some of the components of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed design that we have examined so far.
Now before arriving at this point, I underwent a process of elimination by repeatedly analyzing each configuration according to its positioning, symbolics, and all-around comprehensive fittings. You see, the true concept of his motive was to devise an unusual tarot card, uncustomary to your standard reading card. Nevertheless, to interpret this, you must first learn its characteristics, and to succeed, you need to decipher the connotations of each individual compositions, keeping relevant with the same aspects, coordinates, and origins. By finalizing in this orderly fashion, you unravel its actual meaning.
Let's return to the round center. Notice the incomplete inner circles conveying an indirect idea of shapes like a fingerprint. And applying this concept by placing over or overlay, term used to exhibit this vintage editing technique. Keep in mind this is how they used to trace to duplicate. Next are two serpents keys, similar to the caduceus symbol. However, unlike Johann Froben's created in 1515 that derived from the Bible's New Testament in Matthew stating, "Be wise as serpents, harmless as doves," our serpents adopt the nature of controversy that often take the form of an hourglass bottle. One of our serpents represents Hygeia, the goddess of health and hygiene. Our vocabulary word hygiene derived from her name. She is the daughter of Asclepius, the god of medicine and healing. The round figure shape behind our serpents symbolizes our health center, procreation, and generation of new life from Phanis that comes with astrology. Half covered up over a block structure that sits on top behind our half globe shape. The center forehead pentagram. Although it plays a major role of geometrics, its shape and meaning also appears in voodoo, witchcraft, authority, communism, politics, and international flags. And let us not forget stardom. Keeping in mind the overlay outline method, used like the stamp mark, bearing resemblance to our loop flame. Round breasts embodies the characteristics of welfare and charity. Like this painting by Dirk van Baburen entitled Roman Charity, created between 1618 and 1624, about a wife secretly breastfeeding her starving husband upon visit while he's under captivity in a Roman prison. Here are other examples, one from Peter Paul Rubens, created in 1612. Another by Gaspard de Crailly, created between 1620 and 1630. And also Pierre Sableras, created in 1720. In common with the statue Diana of Ephesus, the goddess of fertility, that is displayed in another painting by Peter Paul Rubens entitled The Discovery of the Child Erichthonius, created in 1615. Erichthonius was born from the earth's soil with legs like the tails of serpents. He was placed in a basket under the protection of Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war, entrusting him to the three daughters of Cecrops, the founder of Athens. The daughters were instructed not to open the basket until Athena returned. However, they disobeyed this command, and upon seeing the serpent-formed child, they went mad and leaped from the Acropolis, meeting their tragic end. This dog in the scene appears to be wary by the open basket, clearly indicating apprehensive behavior about a possible threat, much like the display of this tarot card, Fool, where the dog is attempting to warn of the oncoming cliff up ahead, while this inattentive individual seems to be unaware. Note the left hand posture, like the Éliphas Lévi Zahed signaling a gesture of a consequential outcome. In the background on the left, we see a Hermes statue with the head of Pan. At the foot of this statue, we notice a peacock bird that symbolizes many meanings in Greek mythology, four to which are in common would be beauty, power, royalty, and childbirth. As it turns out, Erichthonius would someday become the ruler of ancient Athens. This child, Erichthonius, being saved from the earth's soil delivered in a basket, is similar to our biblical infant Moses, drawn from the waters in a basket. Now witness Moses older in a painting by an artist named Jean-Charles Frontier entitled Moses and the Brazen Serpent, created in 1750. Again with a serpent wrapped around a rod, a biblical story of Israelites wandering in the desert. Some were bitten by poisonous serpents, however cured just by gathering and looking at the serpent set upon the pole by Moses. Those who refused to look died. Here's another example of horns shown, as he has been appointed authority of divinity. Comprised as beams of light that allows you to see, signifying truth and sight. As for his hand gesture, now take a look at the incomplete V in solve on this right forearm. Notice the posture of the index finger and the thumb, set over top of the shape of the V. There is much more to be said about this painting, as it will be a major topic in discussion, however only in the next episode. For now, with the hand gestures that go back as far as the dancing faun. Preserved from the ash of the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in Pompeii, year 79 AD. Like a metaphor for an unexpected catastrophe to occur while in the realm of celebrating, as he salutes using the symbolic hand gesture of Sabazios. Regardless of its mysterious meanings, it shows that Romans were influenced by outside religions and formed its own cults.
And while gathering more evidence, I was finally exposed to something so extraordinary that up until now, just hearing about something like this would have sounded like some kind of fictional fairy tale. However, nothing could be further from the truth. When I fell upon the second Witch's Sabbath painting, not only have I uncovered this hidden arrow indicated in plain sight, but I would also unravel something that I will explain to you in another part series. So stay tuned for another episode where I demonstrate how the Éliphas Lévi Zahed was also a depiction of a paradox that correlated with certain photographic events that later took place in our history after the portrait was created. Traces of obvious yet unnoticed clues overlooked up until now. I will also unveil before you an unbelievable supernatural event that occurred to me during the unraveling of this mystery. So this would conclude this presentation as part 1 of the Éliphas Lévi Zahed mystery. Until then, look for me, and know that there is only one Mr. E who truly solves mysteries.